Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Shivani Gupta, and I am here with you today from Well World TV. And I'm excited to share with you about a topic from a system of health and healing called Ayurveda. So, Ayurveda is over 5,000 years old, and it means the science of life. It's a system of health and prevention from India, from this ancient culture that really taught us so much about how we can live a preventive lifestyle in our bodies and in our lives every single day. And what I love about Ayurveda is it shares with us so many different methods and areas of health, from detoxification to nutrition, herbology, um, really yoga as a sister science to Ayurveda, pranayama. There's so much to it. And when you look at Ayurveda, it taught a concept called the doshas. Now, you might have heard of this. You might have heard of something called the dosha quiz, or what your mind body constitution is. So over the next couple weeks, I want to go over the three Ayurvedic constitutions called the doshas, what they are and what they mean. Now, just know that when you take a dosha quiz, which I have available on my website, you can take this quiz and know from this assessment which of the three doshas you are predominantly, and then you can also learn what is your secondary dosha. Now, please know that all of us have all three doshas in our lives. At different seasons, different doshas are kind of aggravated or exacerbated or occurring more strongly in nature, so they can impact us. There's different types of day that are reflective of the different doshas and have those in predominance, so that affects us. So I typically sit down with people in an Ayurvedic consultation to really assess what's your dosha, what is your lifestyle, what are your goals, and how do you work with the rhythms of nature and with your existing dosha to live a life that's more in balance. So I have a PowerPoint I built for you guys. I'll share my screen with you now so you can come to understand a little bit more about the first dosha that we're going to go into. So the first dosha is called the Vata dosha. Now, this is just a picture of me. I have a background in Ayurveda. My PhD was on turmeric, so I'm really obsessed with turmeric and the spices and all their benefits to us for our bodies and for our health long term. Now, let's get into the importance of the doshas. The doshas are so important because when you're in balance with your dosha, all of a sudden, everything seems to come together. You feel better. Your immune system is stronger. It's able to fight things off more easily. You feel centered and grounded and in balance. Things that might be bothering you that you perceive as personality traits or deficiencies in your personality actually come to become things that you really love and admire about yourself. So it's really great to understand your dosha and then what it takes to balance it, because then in the long term, your health can be that much better, that much stronger. You might achieve the goals that you really want to achieve. So let's talk about a concept from Ayurveda called Prakruti. So Prakruti just means the moment of creation. So that moment that you were created, that moment of conception, is the deciding factor of what your dosha is. Whatever was going on with your mother and your father, their constitutions and the environment at that time, that was the deciding factor. So you have something called your Prakruti, and then you also have something called your Vakruti. So Prakruti is all those traits that decided your constitution at birth. And then Vakruti is later, the imbalance that might happen due to health issues or different life issues that shift your dosha towards being something else. For example, you could have been born a Vata, and then things happen, and now you're a Kapha, and you don't feel like yourself. You don't understand why you're so sluggish or slow moving or whatever. It might just be a kapha imbalance, and you need to be brought back to your vata self to feel most aligned and most alive and healthy and vibrant. So now let's go into the elements. So truly, these doshas are made up of the 5 elements. They're energies. They're almost like a universal force or energy that's come to exist in this form called doshas. So it's important to understand the elements, because the elements really gives you that indication of what you are experiencing or dealing with. So Vata is made up of ether and air. It's really the foundation of all movement. So all movement that you experience in nature, all movement that occurs in your body. So whether it's digestion, whether it's your lymphatic system, whether it's the blinking of your eyes, your inhale and exhalation, all in compression and expansion, really. All movement in the body is Vata. All fires in the body are Pitta. And Pitta and Kapha share water, but Kapha is more of an earth energy, more grounded, more solid. And then Pitta is more of that fire, digestive fire, transformational fires. So I'll be getting into Pitta in my next class and Kapha in my final one. This is just to show you that typically when you are of a certain dosha, classically, if you are primarily that dosha, you will have certain body characteristics. So a Vata person will be thin, narrow, small boned, smaller wrists, smaller joints. A Pitta person is more medium build, more average and medium in everything. And then a Kapha person might be a little bit heavier, sturdier, of the earth, maybe bigger boned and stronger. These are kind of classic characteristics of the doshas that if you have not taken the dosha quiz right now, you might start resonating with some of this and kind of understand for yourself which dosha you are. Now let's talk for a moment about Vata and the appearance of a Vata person. So a Vata person, like I said, their body is naturally thinner, it's leaner, thinner, smaller joints all over. They might have more of a flatter chest. They look like they're almost underdeveloped sometimes. They have an oval shape that tends to be longer than most. So Pitta might be more medium, Kapha might be wider, but they have like a longer face structure typically. And they tend to find it hard to put on muscle. Like they are typically really lean. And if they want to build muscle, it's a struggle. This group of people can also eat more carbs than the rest of us. It's a challenge to put on body weight. I know for most of us that seems pretty far-fetched, like who are you people? But the Vata person typically has a harder time putting on weight. And their skin is naturally dry, cold, or rough. So a big complaint they have is their hands and feet are always cold. Or why is their skin so rough? How do they get like moist, supple skin? And we definitely have some recommendations for that out of Ayurveda. Now here, let's talk about some Vata traits. So a Vata person is more of like a higher stress, like nervous type person. They're usually in their sympathetic nervous system because they're always like fight or flight and ready to move. The way I typically describe a Vata is like they're a spinning top or like a tornado. They're just always moving. They're one of those people who's never gonna like sit and chill. They're just gonna always be a busybody and ready to go do something somewhere. They're also typically someone who's active. They're more restless. They're like hyperactive almost. And it's someone who generally just doesn't want to chill. They want to go do something. Their sleep is light. It's usually easily disturbed. They have a tendency towards insomnia. So this bad sleep is going to impact their immune system. It is going to impact their energy, their inflammation as well. It is something to be watched and something to be worked on for the Vata person. It's also someone who tends to think and talk fast. They love being with others. They're extroverted. They like to be social. It's also someone who's good at initiating things, but not necessarily at following through. So it's someone who gets started on all these things, but they don't finish. And that might be something that's really frustrating for this person. It's also someone who's lively, but maybe prone to not having a great memory, not great concentration. And that also might be a frustration for them. They might need support from others to help them finish or move through things and complete them. And it also tends to be a creative person. So Vata person's creative. They've got all these ideas and things going on, but again, they might need someone to help them finish and close certain chapters before they move into new ones. Now let's talk about the best way to support a Vata imbalance. So a Vata person in balance is going to be thriving based on all the characteristics I just described. It's someone who's going to be creative and moving and out there and happy and fit and a lot of good things. They might have their sleep somewhat balanced, even though a tendency is to have bad sleep. They might have found ways to have really good sleep rituals and things. So if you have a Vata imbalance where, you have a lot of the traits I talked about, but in the negative perspective, then it's important to do things that support that Vata imbalance and bring you into balance with your Vata self. Or if you're a Pitta or a Kapha and you have a Vata imbalance, this will balance that and bring you back to your own nature and constitution and dosha. So let's talk about the best ways to support a Vata imbalance. Number one, get plenty of relaxation, rest, and sleep. Now, if you were listening earlier, that doesn't make any sense. A Vata person's not going to want to do these three things. They're going to say, it's really hard to sit down and settle down. What are you talking about? Well, what they need most is the thing that they avoid the most. Isn't that funny? It's one of those things where they need that rest, they need that sleep. So you almost have to like build it into your life like it's medicine. You have to say, you know what? I'm going to do self-care. Self-care is active, but restful. I'm going to sleep 8 hours a day because that's my medicine. Whatever that is for you, it's almost like you have to prescribe it to yourself and do it as an action, because that's almost more in line with how a Vata person would think or feel or be. Another great way to support your Vata imbalance is utilize methods to reduce anxiety, including yoga and meditation. So a Vata person can have a tendency towards anxiety and nervousness and overwhelm. And so the best antidote for them is yoga and meditation. Find a yoga studio you love. Find a yoga practice you love. Find a meditation app you love. Something. We have so much science that has proven that these things are beneficial for anxiety, but truly know that they're beneficial for your dosha, and that's how they're balancing that anxiety. Also very important is to follow a regular routine. So this is my number one recommendation. Set a schedule for yourself, almost like you would set for a child. For children, you might say, okay, we wake up every day at 8 o'clock. We eat every day at 9 o'clock. So that kind of thing, really keeping in mind the Ayurvedic circadian clock schedule as well. So maybe every day you eat between 7 and 8:30 in the morning. Maybe you have lunch every day, 12 to 2. Maybe you have dinner 5 to 7:30 every day. Done. Train your body to expect a schedule with eating, with sleep, with other habits, with your tea times. I had a very big Vata imbalance for a few years because I was working, I have a supplement company, and so it's carried by doctors. And I was running at 200 miles an hour all over 3 counties to meet with all my doctors every day. And I could tell I had a major Vata imbalance. So I followed exactly what I'm telling you today. And I built a rigid routine for myself. And then I started to thrive again. I balanced those Vata imbalances that I didn't like in myself at the time. So moving on from there, internal and external use of oils. So healthy fats and abhyanga. So in Ayurveda, a Vata person would be recommended to eat healthy fats 3 times a day with their meals. Why? Because a Vata person doesn't really need to eat regularly. They don't have the digestive fire that a Pitta person has. They're more like, hey, I'm just gonna have hummus and crackers. I'm just gonna have some crackers and snacks over here. I just had a piece of fruit and I'm fine. They're not big eaters. So the way to balance them is almost to like weigh them down so they can't be that spinning top spinning around so fast. So think of it as like, I'm going to eat avocado, I'm going to eat nuts at meal times just to bring those healthy fats into my life and bring that pace down a little bit. And abhyanga just means self-massage. So it's an act of self-care out of Ayurveda that we teach, where you take delicious oils like sesame oil, almond oil, both are great for a Vata. You can warm them like a 1/4 cup of the oil. And then what I do, I sit down on a towel in my bedroom, light a candle, and I will just start massaging myself. You start with your feet and you move up towards the neck, and you can also do a head oil massage if you want like thicker, lustrous hair. But when you do it, really put the oil where, you know, that never sees the light of day, those body parts, the sides of your ankles, between your toes, everywhere. And it's especially important for a Vata person that you do the feet. Why? Because if you do the tops of the feet and the feet, you sleep better. So you can do Abhyang massage in the morning. That's when it was typically done in Ayurveda and ancient India. But if you don't have time in the morning, you can also do it in the evening, and it'll really give you that rich, deeper, delicious sleep that you might be craving. Now let's move on from there. A Vata person should also avoid overstimulation. They should take time daily for reflection and stillness. This is a big one, finding that time to just recalibrate. I teach something called modern Ayurveda self-care, and within that, I teach something called tea time is me time. So grabbing a cup of delicious tea and sitting down to just chill, calibrate. How do I feel? Is life feeling too crazy? What do I need to do to make that feeling go away? Am I hungry? Like, what, have I scheduled my day in a way that's supportive to me or crazy? So I really take tea time as a way to recenter and recalibrate with my cup of tea. Um, and I really have found that to be really beneficial for those Vata times of life or Vata imbalances that might come up. I already talked about doing self massage daily, paying attention to the feet. That's part of Abhyang. And then also practice waking up at sunrise and going to bed at the exact same time every night. So in Ayurveda, we teach a concept called circadian medicine or circadian rhythm. And what that does, it teaches you the circadian clock and how it's most important to sleep from 10 to 2. I have done a class on sleep here on Well World TV if you want to look that one up. And I go into great detail about sleep. But 10 to 2 is when the body's really detoxing and supporting the body to detox everything from the day and what the body doesn't need. So sleeping from 10 to 6 is ideal, but as close to those times as you can get would be really wonderful, especially for a Vata person. Now let's jump into food. So we all know food is medicine, and we all know that what we choose to eat can have a tremendous impact on our health, on our body, on our mood. But it's also important to keep your dosha in mind. If you eat for your dosha, you're really supporting your body in a whole new way. And you might not have had that understanding before. So let's talk about it. A Vata person should choose foods that are grounding, such as sweet potatoes, beets, root vegetables, almost like you had walked into the fall season. And so now you wanted to eat those foods. A Vata person should also choose moist, warming grains, warming soups. Those will be really comforting to you. And avoiding raw, dry, or undercooked foods. So less of the salads, less of the raw foods, and really choosing more of those cooked foods instead. Then it's also important to use mild gas relieving spices. So we have certain spices in Ayurveda that we absolutely know reduce the gas producing properties of food. Now imagine if you were a Vata person and you snacked here or there, you might have a lot of gas in your system because you didn't actually eat full meals. And so these can be really supportive to that Vata person who just doesn't have to eat as often. Fresh ginger, cumin, coriander, fennel, these are all spices we use daily in Indian cooking because we know from Ayurveda how beneficial they are. And then eating meals at the same time daily. I went over this, but breakfast 7 to 8:30, lunch 11 to 2 is a good window, and dinner 5:30 to 7. Making lunch the biggest meal, dinner the smallest. But really, like, that is really, really, really important for a Vata person. Really important in Ayurveda overall, really. So now let's show you this image, guys, of Vata pacifying foods. There's berries, avocado, sweet potato, like I said, pistachios and different nuts, wild rice. Rice can kind of give you more of that weight and filling effect in the food. Beets, which are a root vegetable. And just so you know, it's interesting, sweet foods reduce anxiety. So that might be why a Vata person is constantly going to say, I have a sweet tooth, I have a sweet tooth, I need sweets. Truly, it's their stress or anxiety that's causing them to reach for sweets because sweets cool that feeling down. So take note of that and kind of catch that for yourself. If you are reaching for sweets every day at 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 6 p.m., who knows, 8, 9, 10, due to children or spouses or stress or work, or you finally sat down and were with your own thoughts, what can you do to kind of recalibrate and pivot that to be, oh my gosh, you know what? Before X time, when I typically reach for chocolate or sugar, I'm going to reach for my favorite tea. I'm going to relax with a bowl of berries. Like, what can you do instead to kind of cool that feeling down instead of reaching for sweets? If you know that sweets means that that's why you're reaching for it. So now I made a slide on seasons and doshas. And this is because if you are a Vata, you can do all those Vata balancing things, but it's also important to accommodate for the seasons. Like I had mentioned before, there's different seasons reflected in this. So if you're a Vata, you might have a Vata aggravation in the fall, and it's beneficial to detox and cleanse before you enter the aggravating season for your dosha. It's also good to detox after. We typically detox at the intersection of seasons. But just know that certain seasons can all of a sudden bring your symptoms up and you're like, wait, what happened? I thought I was being good. You might have to double down in what you do. And then when you look at the time of day and the doshas that are out there, these are the different times of day when these doshas exist. And so you can utilize that and harness that. So if you're a Vata, you know that 2 p.m. to sunset is like your best time to get things done. It's your season. So might as well wake up and get moving and make that time really productive for yourself, because nature's on your side. The circadian clock is on your side during that time period. And then that's it. I wanted to say thank you guys. You can find me on my website at shivanigupta.com. That's one great place where you can find me. Let me stop sharing the screen so it's just me again. Hi, guys. So I wanted to share with you about the Vata dosha because it's so key. And one interesting fact, when I was doing my master's degree, one of my professors shared with me that she felt like over 90% of people here in the West, in America, suffer from Vata imbalances. And I thought, whoa, that's crazy. Doesn't matter what your dosha is, most of us are suffering from that. So what can we really do to support ourselves? What can we do to feel whole and nourished and not like we're cold, depleted, empty, full of air and wind people who are running around stressed out, unable to concentrate, unable to focus? How do we balance this Vata issue in our bodies? And so I really have taken so much time to think about it, to test different things out of Ayurveda and see what supports us. And that's why I think 4 or 5 years ago, I created modern Ayurveda self-care. I was just self-experimenting on myself that if I followed these things out of Ayurveda and added a couple things in, would I have that feeling of like ease and flow and wellness that I craved? And I believe I have discovered it because I feel pretty awesome almost every single day of the week. And that's why I like teaching this, because if we do practice Ayurvedic self-care, if we do live according to our dosha, with our food, with our routines, with knowing that, hey, life is getting crazy. How do I balance myself? Oh, I could just eat root vegetables and a stew. Perfect. I will opt for that. Then we've kind of given ourselves like this toolbox, this toolkit full of things that we can reach for when we need it. And having that really intuitive awareness of our body and what we need is really a central theme in Ayurveda. And that's why I love sharing it with all of you. So that was my whole class on the Vata dosha. If you guys have any questions, please reach out anytime. And I'll be teaching about Pitta and Kapha next. And I hope all of you are well. Stay well, practice your Ayurvedic lifestyle tools, be your healthiest, and I will see you all next time. Thank you so much.